ankle and doing the bony areas, this wrap here is good, but it doesn't always protect our bony areas around the ankle and the foot. I'm only going to go on so far on this. It's good, but it's not what we want to do for bony spots, so we'll leave that there. The biggest important part is to take like an ABD that's folded in thirds, open it up, fold it in half. This will protect the back of the heel. So this area here is now one of our spots where, just as if it was a pressure ulcer in bed, it will be a pressure ulcer and an OCL or a splint. You take another one, you've done the same thing, fold it the opposite direction and bring it up going up the sides. This one is not necessarily going to be long enough, so what we'll do is we can take this one, slide it to the side, put one on that side, and do a third one coming up the other side, because here's where the ankle bones are, and that's where the pressure is going to be. So when your OCL goes on and forms, and it bends right here to be along the side of the foot in this area, those points on that OCL bend and then press into the foot. So that's why we want them padded well on each side and the back. Okay, we can stop for a minute. It's going to look like this. We've got one going across the back, and then we've got the ones that come up on the side. So we've got the ankles, and then the extra will sit underneath. Once we put the OCL under, then those will be padded and protected from that OCL. So the corner, on this corner edge, when it folds and it hardens, it won't harden and press right into a particular spot in their foot. So this is what we'll do, and then we will start the wrap over this one. Okay. You want to look at the back of the leg and make sure that it's not coming up too high. If it is, you can trim that out. The other trick that you can do is pull it down under the foot a little further to get it down off the back of the leg, but once again, you don't want it pressing on the toes. As it hardens, you can bend the back a little bit like that. Just give it a little curl back so that rough edge isn't pushing on them. Okay, let's get her wrapped. And where these corners are, you always want to make sure those corners are not pushing in on them where that OCL actually folds. If the OCL, or once you're done with it, looks fatter over the bony prominences, then that means you padded them, and that's okay. We don't want it to be thin over those areas. So if you look at this one, it's going to be real fat right through here compared, and you're going to see it actually drop off. That's okay, because what we've got fattened here is all of our extra padding with our ABD pads. ABD pads up the side, and ABD pad going lengthwise underneath the back area under here is important, because that protects the heel and the sides of the ankle. This could be a wrist, it could be a bony prominence and a wrist area here, it could be an elbow area. Anywhere where there's a bend or a bony prominence is where they need to actually pad more. To start to put the OCL piece and get it wet, always stretch the excess covering so that this ortho glass portion in the inside is covered well. If not, these areas will actually dig into the backs of their leg or the bottom of their foot and cause them some pressure areas as well. So you just kind of stretch them out over it. So when it's forming, if you don't have enough to stretch, you can even trim off this little piece inside and leave the padding hang out extra. When you're doing OCLs, the width is actually correct. You need to be concerned about that as well. You do not want the OCL material to ball up or make a big crease, so that when you're looking at the sides, this being the back of the heel going through here, this material should not be balling up and poking into the patient. An OCL material that's too wide will actually have a crease in it. Some of them get pushed inward into the patient after you put the ACE wrap on, and that's another pressure point that would then be hurting that patient and actually pushing into their ankle or their heels. So always watch your width and make sure it's at the curve, that it's not poking into the patient or seeming like there's excess there. When you're doing elbows, you're going to do about the same thing. You're going to do about the same thing on the elbow. So when the patient's got their elbow bent, you want to protect that bony prominence going across the length of the elbow as well up and down the sides. This is 2 full-size ABD pads. This one would probably be good for the elbow, but if for some reason you need it to be longer, you can do the bigger size ABD pad and then do 2 smaller ones coming up the sides, or fold them in half, whatever it takes to get the padding over those bony points. And the same way for a wrist. If you're doing a wrist and they've got a bony prominence here, some patients will have a higher styloid process. You can actually put these along the outer edge. And we've done that yesterday, in fact, on a patient that was real tender along that area. So protecting those bones along those areas are real important.